In 1981, a film arrived that changed the way we thought about soundtracks. The title sequence of Chariots of Fire is set in 1920s England, but the theme music was created using the latest electronic technology. It shouldn't work, but it does, because the score, by Vangelis, captures the rhythm and exhilaration of the runners.
My interest in it was not to create a symphony orchestra, which I can, it's very easy, but to go further than that and do things that the symphony orchestra can't do.
Chariots of Fire proved once and for all that an electronic score could be as moving and uplifting as any performed by an orchestra. Vangelis is one of a series of pioneering composers and filmmakers who have used new technology to expand the possibilities of the soundtrack. Hollywood was impressed and awarded the pop maestro an Oscar for his debut effort. Moroder gave this hard film the hard electronic edge it needed, but a question remained over electronics. Could they be warm? Could they be moving? Or even inspirational, the way that an orchestral soundtrack could? In 1981, we found out. Chariots of Fire was produced, like Midnight Express, by David Putnam, and its score was created by another European who'd made his name in pop music, Vangelis. I felt right from the start what you caught was a sense of effort. Yeah. How did you imagine that into your music?
I don't know, that happens. I can't really explain, because it's instinctive, and I felt, I mean, you know, this first scene, you know, the runners on the beach, I felt that this needs some kind of enthusiasm, oxygen, you know, youth.
Vangelis Papathanasiou emerged from the 1960s Greek prog rock scene, yes, there was one, where he was the keyboardist in a band with Demis Roussos. In the 1970s, he recorded a series of solo electronic albums and documentary soundtracks, which brought him to the attention of director Hugh Hudson.
I thought about it from the very beginning. Literally, as I read the script, I wanted to use Vangelis. I didn't want anybody else. The task was to persuade people to use such a contemporary form of music in such a you know, period film.
Okay, so the first theme, it was this.
The Chariots of Fire theme was only composed at the 11th hour. Hugh Hudson originally wanted to use a track from one of Vangelis' albums.
Hugh at the time told me, don't think about the opening. The opening, we have it. But do the rest, and I did the rest. And then in my mind, I was not very happy. I said, I have to do that, I have to try. And I sat down, and that's it. And then that became this. I can't play the di-di-di-di-di, but I need Mr. Bean to do it.
Chariots of Fire focuses on two rival British sprinters competing in the 1924 Olympics, the Scottish missionary Eric Liddell and the intensely driven Harold Abrahams. Vangelis' music captures their very different personalities. In this scene, Abrahams is recalling a race he's just lost to Liddell. The banging of the seats seems to be hammering in Abrahams' sense of defeat. But even that sound fades under Vangelis' sparse score as we share Abrahams' self-absorption.
He was a tormented character. He had his own reasons to run, and he had to win, and he did win. And I think he was much more concerned to win. Little was maybe, you know, more natural to win. The best line of the film, to me, it's that when he says, God made me for a purpose, and when I run, I feel his pleasure. That's a great line.
And I love the moment when you hear that again
Oh,
as
when it's
he's
a
running.
repeated image, yeah,
And
repeated
as his
voice.
head goes back, your music explodes.
Jenny, I believe God made me for a purpose. But he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
To create his Chariots of Fire score, Vangelis used a costly, bespoke set of equipment. But technical advances were already rendering banks of expensive kit obsolete. Soon a single instrument could do much of the heavy musical lifting.
This is the Korg M1. It's one of the iconic keyboards of the 1980s, and you'll understand why when I just do this. It's kicking off a whole series of other musical textures just with the holding down of one note. So if you do this, you get an enormous texture, enough for a film score. There is actually a program on here called Film Score. And that's my problem with it, because instead of being a tool towards creativity, it can become a replacement for it. Electronics works at its best when a composer takes it and creates something completely new that we haven't heard before.
And that's just what Vangelis did with his next score. It was for a film set nearly 100 years after Chariots of Fire, and in a very different world. Los Angeles, 2019. In Blade Runner, Vangelis' soundtrack reflects and enhances our awe at a future realised in extraordinary, spectacular detail by director Ridley Scott and special effects wizard Doug Trumbull and his team. Vangelis creates not just a music score, but an entire soundscape that heightens the visuals. Here, the very twinkling of the city's lights seems captured in the music.
With Blade Runner, you had to create a world in our ears that matched a world we'd never seen before on the screen.
I was knocked out as well when I saw this big construction by Doug Trumbull. And of course, it's been done with no computers at the time. And it impressed me, and immediately I did this theme like I did with Chariots. Here's the one, okay?
You've always used electronics as orchestral instruments, or like orchestral instruments. It's like you've created your own orchestra using these sounds.
The thing is that my interest in it was not to create a symphony orchestra, which I can, it's very easy, but to go further than that and do things that the symphony orchestra can't do, and to open other paths. And I think that I succeed to create some things like this.
But are there some things that can't be done by music of any kind? After the conversation, Walter Murch had spent several of the following years exploring the potential of sound effects in another collaboration with director Francis Ford Coppola.